Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, quoting from the Vaishnav Toshini of Srila Sanatana Goswami, says that the incident of Krishna breaking the pot of yogurt and being bound by Mother Yashoda took place on the Deepavali day or Deepa Malika. Even today in India, this festival is generally celebrated very gorgeously in the month of Kartik by fireworks and lights, especially in Bombay. It is to be understood that amongst all the cows of Nanda Maharaj, several of Mother Yashoda's cows ate only grasses so flavorful that the grasses would automatically flavor the milk. Mother Yashoda wanted to collect the milk from these cows, make it into yogurt, and churn it into butter personally, since she thought that this child, Krishna, was going to the houses of neighborhood gopas and gopis to steal butter, because he did not like the milk and yogurt ordinarily prepared. While churning the butter, Mother Yashoda was singing about the childhood activities of Krishna. It was formerly a custom that if one wanted to remember something constantly, he would transform it into poetry or have this done by a professional poet. It appears that Mother Yashoda did not want to forget Krishna's activities at any time. Therefore, she poetized all of Krishna's childhood activities, such as the killing of Putna, Agasura, Sakatasura, and Trinivarta. And while churning the butter, she sang about these activities in poetic form. This should be the practice of persons eager to remain Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. This incident shows how Krishna conscious Yashoda was. To stay in Krishna consciousness, we should follow such persons. So this verse from the Bhagavatam really summarizes or begins to summarize the pastimes of Krishna being bound by Mother Yashoda. And specifically today we're going to look at the first two verses, and we've been singing them every morning and perhaps even listening to the translation. So these are all the Damodarastakam of Satyavrat Muni. Satyavrat Muni composed these 8 verses, and these are very important for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And Sanatana Goswami, as stated by Prabhupada in the purport there, has written a commentary illuminating all of these verses for a deeper understanding. And this is in his book Digdarshani Tika, where he looks at these verses in great detail. Originally these verses are found in the Padma Purana. That's where you'll find these 8 verses. And it's a conversation that takes place between Narada Muni and Shonaka Rishi. And Satyavrat Muni has put that into a word form. And this is known as the Ashtika of Damodar, the 8 verses which glorify Krishna being bound. And there's a benediction that anyone who recites these verses all the time, or at least in the month of Kartik, that he will have eternal shelter of devotional service at the lotus feet of Lord Damodar. So today marks what's known as Bhishma Panchak, the Utthana Ekadashi, and also observes the disappearance day of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, who you can see the picture there. And it marks the last 5 days of the Kartik Mas. And we'll speak a little bit about that as well. What this signifies and what it's about. So specifically, we can look at the first two verses, and tomorrow someone will look at the next, and on Thursday we'll conclude all 8 verses. So the first verse, which we're all accustomed to now, without the song sheet perhaps even. Namamishwaram Sachit Anandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamanam Yashoda Biyoluka Ladhavamanam Param Drishtyam Atyanta Toducha Gopya. And the translation: to the Supreme Lord, whose form embodies eternity, knowledge and bliss, whose earrings swing to and fro, who shines beautifully in Gokul, who due to the offense of breaking the pot of yogurt that his mother was churning into butter, and stealing the butter that was kept hanging from a swing, is quickly running from the grinding mortar in fear of Mother Yashoda, and who has finally caught from behind by her, who ran faster than he, to that Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances. So this verse is considered the Mula Shloka, according to Sanatana Goswami in his Digdarshana, where he says that this verse, the opening prayers, they define the spiritual position of God. And then they continue to describe his transcendental form, his sweet beauty, and sweeter still, the pastime of breaking the pot that Mother Yashoda was churning into butter. And if we look at the breakdown of this verse, it begins with Namami. And Namami, which means I pay my respectful obeisances, like we do. Nama Om Vishnu, we pay our obeisances. Om Jnana, these are paying obeisances. So Satyavrat Muni begins with Nama, that I pay my respectful obeisances. And before commencing anything, of course, this expression is there with love and affection, that we pay our respects. And specifically here, he's paying his obeisances to Ishwaram, Namam Ishwaram, the personality of Godhead. So he begins in this way, his praise for the Lord. And Sanatana Goswami says that this first verse is broken up into Visheshas, which means excellences, different types of excellences. And he says they're broken up into Tattva Vishesha, excellence of his truth; Rupa Vishesha, excellence about his beauty; Parivar Vishesha, excellence about his family; and Leela Vishesha, which means excellence about his pastimes. And there's also, I think, in between Sneha Vishesha, excellence of his attraction. So all of these are mentioned just in the first verse. So you can see how deep all of these things are. We may just sing them and look at them, but Sanatana Goswami has very deeply looked into this subject matter, so that our love deepens for the personality of Godhead. So he first begins with Namam Ishwaram Sachid Anandarupam, this first line. And he says this is Tattva Vishesha. Tattva Vishesha means the excellence of the Lord's truth. The excellence of the Lord's truth. And upon whom is he paying his obeisances? Ishwaram, the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead. And he says specifically, Sanatana Goswami, in reference to this, that the supreme is the truth, the excellence of his truth is that he is Sarva Shaktiman, which means he's endowed with all potencies. He is Jagat Ekanath, which means he is the only Lord of the universe, and he is Nija Prabhu, that is my own master. So he just breaks down this first line that we may read every morning, Namam Ishwaram, into this. And he addresses the Lord like this because in order so that he may be empowered to write further. That my Lord, who you are, Sarva Shaktiman, Jagat Ekanath, and Nija Prabhu, please empower me so that I may write further. And we'll find the same thing in the Brahma Samhita. This is very similar, that as we have in this verse, Namam Ishwaram Satchid Ananda Rupam, where the Brahma Samhita begins with Ishwara Parama Krishna, Satchid Ananda Vigraha, Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Exactly the same principle there, which is being denoted in the Brahma Samhita, Ishwara Parama Krishna. That I'm paying my obeisances unto Krishna, who's Ishwara, as mentioned here, Namam Ishwara. And the Brahma Samhita goes on to say, Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha. So here Sattvat Muni also goes on to say that who is that Lord? Who is that Ishwara? And he defines it that the Ishwara has three attributes as just mentioned. But how does he manifest? Satchit Ananda Vigraha. We always hear of this. So here, Satyavrat Muni says, who is the Supreme Lord? And Sanatana Goswami says in his translation that it's a form which is composed of compressed clouds. That spiritual body, he calls it compressed clouds. Interesting his English that he uses on that. And Sat Chit Ananda. It's eternal, it's full of knowledge, and it's blissful. That's the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sat Chit Ananda. As opposed to our bodies, which are Asat, not eternal. Achit, not full of knowledge. That's why we're always in ignorance and miserable, whatever. And Nirananda, definitely not blissful. Definitely not blissful. So as opposed to that, the spiritual body is very different. And our spiritual body is exactly the same as what? Satchit Ananda, but it's Vigraha. It has a form. It has a form. So that form is being now discussed. So that's the first principle that Sanatana Goswami says, Tattva Vishesha. The excellence of his truth. Just in the first line, he looks at that. And he also goes on to describe, it's described in many places, that the Lord has three potencies, Jnana Shakti, Kripa Shakti, and Aishvarya Shakti, in relationship specifically to this pastime here. And what does this mean to all of us who are sitting in this room? So Jnana Shakti refers to the Lord. He knows all the problems and difficulties that each one of us is facing in our lives. That's Jnana Shakti. He has this potency because he's Ishvara. Each one of us may be often thinking, does God really know what I'm going through? Does Krishna really know what I'm going through every day? So here, Sanatana Goswami is saying that this is Jnana Shakti. He is aware of all the difficulties that you are facing. But that's not all. He has Kripa Shakti. Not only is he aware of the difficulties that each one of us is facing, but Kripa Shakti, he wants to help and do something about them. That's Kripa Shakti. Now someone may say, well, my friends also know the difficulties I face, and they're also very concerned, and they want to help as well. So what's the difference? The difference is Aishwarya Shakti. That Krishna has this third potency that actually he's the only one who can help. He has the power, the potency to help you through your difficulties. Not only does he know of them, not only is he concerned about them, but he's the only person who can actually help you overcome them. But as Prabhupada said, Krishna Bahirmukha Bhoga Vanchakari, that we have turned our face away from Krishna. And hence we are facing all these difficulties. As soon as we turn our face again and face Krishna, Nikatista Mayatari Chopati Adare, immediately all these difficulties, they will disappear. Kripa Shakti. So these are, that's the first line of the verse. Namamishwaram Sachid Anandarupam. The verse continues, Lasat Kundalam. Lasat Kundalam specifically here refers to whose earrings play and swing. His earrings. And this now, Sanatana Goswami says, it's called Rupa Vishesha. The excellence of his pastimes. The excellence of his beauty, Rupa refers to his beauty. So there is the excellence of his beauty in these two words, Lasat Kundalam. And his, as we read in the translation, that his earrings are swinging to and fro because he's trying to run away in fear of Mother Yashoda. So that's one aspect of it, of this Rupa Vishesh, that his earrings are swinging to and fro, and he's looking enchanting, so enchanting. Kandar Pukoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham, as the Brahma Samhita describes, that Cupid personified becomes bewildered when he looks at this form. Of the form of these earrings which are swinging from his face. Another aspect Sanatana Goswami says is that another meaning of Lasat Kundalam in reference to Rupa Vishesh is that the earrings were Mahasobhagya. They were the most fortunate. Why? Because they were personally swinging here and kissing the face of Krishna all the time. They were swinging and kissing the face of Krishna all the time. So they were the most fortunate of all the ornaments of Krishna, apart from the flute. They were the most fortunate, Sanatana Goswami says. What they must have done to achieve that position, that they're constantly swinging and kissing the cheeks of Krishna. Furthermore, this Lasat Kundalam indicates that the earrings were glistening, were glowing. Why? The glowing wasn't the earrings, the glowing was the effulgence of the Lord were coming through the earrings. So it's often said that the bodily complexion of the Lord, of Krishna's body, is the ornament of all his ornaments. These ornaments are actually of no value. It is his body that actually makes them so amazing. And in reference to this, the gopis in the 10th canto, they speak as follows. O Shri Krishna, by seeing your beauty which attracts the three worlds, these cows, birds, trees and deers are all experiencing their hair standing on end. What is the wonder then that we are also bewildered? Because his beauty is so enchanting that everything becomes bewildered. And Uddhava, in the 3rd canto, in speaking to Vidura, he also referenced about Krishna's beauty, because we're talking about Rupa Vishesh here. Lasat Kundalam, his beauty. And he says that Sri Krishna's beauty is so enchanting that it even astonishes Krishna himself. If you remember the pastime when he was in Dwarka and he was looking on the floor and he saw his own reflection and he thought, who is this? He became astonished, bewildered by his own beauty. So Uddhava says, the beauty represents the supreme zenith of great opulence. So much so, he's actually the ornament of all ornaments. Generally, we put different ornaments to beautify ourselves every day, generally. Otherwise, there'll be a problem with the world economy. The cosmetic industry is the biggest industry in the world. And unless they can advertise the fact that you put these different items on you, you will not be pleasurable to others. But here, we're hearing differently that Krishna is the ornament of all ornaments. He doesn't need any of these ornaments to make himself look better. Isn't it? I remember definitely in the dramas, when I perform the dramas, or still do, I know when we get into it, we have to put the makeup on and different things, and a person transforms. You wouldn't recognize that was you anymore. So that whole cosmetic industry is based on that. That how we can make everyone look better. And of course people try. Like Michael Jackson tried and tried. Successful. You couldn't tell who he was after a while. After a while he couldn't tell who he was in the end. But here, it's being mentioned how Krishna is the ornament of all ornaments. He doesn't need anything to make him look any more beautiful. But if these ornaments are placed on him, they become more beautiful. Simply by the effulgence of the Lord. So Lasat Kundalam. This is Rupa Vishesh. And Gokule Brajamanam. Gokule Brajamanam means who is splendidly manifest in Gokul. And this now refers to, Sanatana Goswami says, what's known as Parivara Vishesh. The excellence of his family. Gokule Brajamanam. And specifically Gokule, where does he manifest these pastimes? Gokul. In Gokul, he's manifesting all of these. So here, Parivara Vishesh, the excellence of his family. His families are the Gopas, as Gokule refers to. The gopis, the cows, the calves, the peacocks. All of these are his parivara, his family members. So the excellence of his family members is being mentioned here. Gokule Brajamanam. Indicating that the great fortune of the residents of Gokul. Because Krishna chose to appear in their community. He could have appeared in some other community. But he chose to appear in the community of cowherds. So Gokule Brajamanam. So amazing, this community, that Krishna has decided to appear within all of them. They must be greatly fortunate. So this is Parivar Vishesh, the excellence of his family members. And the last two lines, Yashoda bi lokulat davamana param drishtyamatyantam todrucha gopya. That his mother, who was churning the butter, and he was trying to steal that butter which was kept hanging from a swing, and she ran after him with greater speed, and she tied him to a wooden grinding mortar, but finally caught him. So all of this is called, these last two lines, Sanatana Goswami describes, they're called Leela Vishesh, the excellence of this pastime. Excellence of this pastime. The different details, but the excellence of it all. they stated in these last two lines how Krishna, he decided that Mother Yashoda had a storehouse of yogurt and ghee and different things, that he decided to turn one of the wooden grinding mortars upside down and climb upon it and then steal the butter and yogurt. But the only way to do it was to break the pots. So this is called Leela Vishesh, the excellence of this pastime. He breaks the pots. This is the personality of Godhead. Not only does he eat the butter and ghee, but he then distributes it to the monkeys and friends who are all there. He's distributing all of this. So this super excellence of this pastime. And often this question is often asked, why is it that Krishna is so attracted to butter? At least Mother Yashoda's butter. And the Acharyas speak on this, and they speak about the fact that butter has two qualities. At least the butter made there. It's definitely not the butter I have at home. It has two qualities. It's soft. My butter's not soft, that's what I'm saying. It's soft and it's pure. So, Krishna, he's very attracted to these two qualities. The softness and the purity of butter. So it's not just that he wants to taste the butter of Mother Yashoda and steal it, but actually really what he's interested in is stealing our hearts. But he can only steal our hearts if they are like butter. They are soft and they are pure. And when our heart is soft and pure, then Krishna can come and steal it. Otherwise he cannot. So the whole process of Krishna consciousness is this. Our chanting, our sadhana, our going out to speak to others. All of this is meant to make our heart soft and pure. So that in due course Krishna will come and steal our hearts. So this is Leela Vishesh, the super excellence of the pastime. And it concludes Dhrutya Gopya, the last word. That Mother Yashoda, and specifically she's the one that's running after him with greater speed than Krishna could run. And Sanatana Goswami says that this last word signifies Sneha Vishesha, the excellence of affection that exists between Mother Yashoda and Krishna. Sneha Vishesha. That bond between them is so amazing. That affection that Mother Yashoda has, how intimate it is. And this is described further how Nanda Maharaj had a lot of cows. It's described that he had 900,000 cows. He was the head of the cowherd, so he had a lot of cows. So Mother Yashoda always realized that Krishna seems to be going to our neighbors and stealing the butter and ghee. Maybe he doesn't like my butter and ghee and yogurt. So let me make sure that this butter and yogurt is none like any in Gokul. So of the 900,000 cows, she kept 8 very special cows. And these 8 special cows are mentioned. Prabhupada mentioned them in the purport. They were known as Padmagandha. That they supplied milk which was flavored like the lotus flower. Maybe that's an advert for the Ahimsa milk brand. Flavored like the lotus flower. Not only is it Ahimsa milk. So these 8 cows, Mother Yashoda personally looked after. And she fed them, and the grass that they ate was also flavored. And hence the milk that came out was already flavored. And you'll see that even in our own farm. In the summer, the milk that the cows produce is a lot richer because they're actually feeding on the grass in our fields. But in the winter, because they're on hay and straw, the milk is different flavor. Less creamier as well. So Mother Yashoda had automatically realized that let's have the best grass for these 8 cows. So there's no need to make a milkshake. It's already flavored when it comes out. It's got a certain flavor on it already. So they had the flavor of lotus flowers. And she hoped that the butter and the yogurt and the ghee that she makes from this will be so tasteful that Krishna will not break into other people's homes. As he's called a makkan chor, one who steals the butter. But as we already said, really what he's come to do is he's come to steal our hearts. So that's the first verse that we've looked at. And I'll finish the 2 verses so that we're on track. And the second verse continues with Leela Vishesh, the excellence of this pastime. Rudam tamuhu nitram yugmam rijantam karamboga yugmena satanka nitram muhu swasakam pati rekanta kanta stita grevam damodaram bhakti badam. Seeing his mother's stick, he cried and rubbed his eyes again and again with his 2 lotused hands. His eyes were fearful, and his quick breathing shook the strands of pearls on his neck, which bore 3 lines like a conch shell. To that Supreme Lord, Shri Damodar, whose belly is bound with the ropes of his mother's pure love, I offer my humble obeisances. So he's crying and rubbing his eyes. Because why? He's seeing the whipping stick in his mother's hands. And he's perceiving that she may hit him. And he appears to be fearful. And he's hoping for some empathy. Krishna's playing a pastime. That if I now start crying and hopefully I'll get some sympathy from my mother and she won't hit me. And children are like that, aren't they? They first try it on. That you know, they're crying and they figured it out that if that means I won't get a smack. So Krishna here also was trying the same thing. That Mother Yashoda, of course she would never hit him. She was just threatening him. That why are you behaving like this? His fearful eyes revealed how he was dreading the punishment. It also indicates here that he was trying to avoid the punishment that was due. He knew he had done wrong, but he was avoiding. How can I stop Mother Yashoda from punishing me? So, muhu swasakam pati. The necklace of pearls that he had around his neck, because he was crying and rubbing his eyes, because he was breathing so heavily, it began to shake. They began to shake. So it's very interesting, this principle that the personality of Godhead became frightened. The personality of Godhead, whom everyone is afraid of in this universe, becomes fearful of Mother Yashoda. Leela Vishesh, the super excellence of this pastime, is being described. Mayavad philosophers generally want to become one with God. But in Vaishnava philosophy, as we can see here, the devotee becomes more than God. How is it that God himself is frightened of Mother Yashoda? So Sanatana Goswami says that how our philosophy is, why become one with God? We can become greater than God. Of course, this is Leela Vishesh, it's pastime. But still, that principle is there, that we can, as Prabhupada said in the purport, that anyone who wants to become Krishna conscious should follow in the footsteps of great devotees like Mother Yashoda, where daily she'd made poems of all the different pastimes that he had, and she would recite it every day so she could remember him, to poetry. So Prabhupada is giving us an indication how in our daily life we can remember Krishna, like Mother Yashoda did. But here, in the second verse, we can see how even God becomes frightened. He becomes subservient to his devotees. Just like in the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna became subservient. He became the Sarathi. He was simply the chariot driver. And Arjuna was the real hero. So Krishna becomes subservient, and that's why he's called Bhakta Vatsala. And the second verse is signifying this principle, that the Lord becomes subservient to the love of his devotees. So of course this pastime continues that she finally caught hold of him and she was trying to bind him. But every time she tried to bind him, the rope was always 2 fingers too short. I don't think, sometimes we say inches, I don't think they had inches in those days, so it's definitely 2 fingers too short. And often, Prabhupada refers to it, and Sanatana Goswami says, what are these 2 fingers? What do they represent? If you want to bind the Lord, what do they represent? Because every time she got some more rope, it was too short, she would get some more rope from the cows. They had so many cows. So much rope was there. She would get more rope, more rope, more rope. But it was always 2 fingers too short. So she couldn't figure it out. What's going on? So these 2 fingers, they represent what's known as, if you want to succeed in your spiritual life, the Sanatana Goswami is giving us a clue here. He says you need 2 things. Cheshta, which means sincere endeavor of love. Not just endeavor, he says, sincere endeavor of love. So it's not even just sincere endeavor even. It's sincere endeavor of love. Because often we think, I'm doing all of these things, but nothing's happening. So Sanatana Goswami is identifying it very clearly here. Cheshta, sincere endeavor of love. Are we doing that? Or another definition of that is Dhrida Vrata. Unflinching determination. Not determination, but unflinching. And determination. Unflinching determination is described by one Christian theologian when he says that obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off the goal. Obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off the goal. So this is Dhrida Vrata. So you need, first of all, Cheshta, which is sincere endeavor of love or unflinching determination, but that's not enough. It's not sufficient. You also need the second quality, which Sanatana Goswami says, karuna, which means Krishna's supreme mercy. Krishna's supreme mercy. If you have both, then you can bind the personality of Godhead. Otherwise you cannot. So here in this pastime, when Krishna saw that his mother was running after him and she was endeavoring sincerely to catch him, and there were beads of perspiration on her, and she was out of breath. When he saw that, he said, now I agree to be bound. Because he was so concerned that his mother was exerting herself so much. He said, now I agree to be bound. Because I see this cheshta, this sincere endeavor of love. And then he gives his karuna, his supreme mercy. So both are needed. Both are needed very much in trying to endeavor to come and become very successful in our Krishna consciousness. So it's described how in the Bhagavatam that Krishna agreed to be bound. And here in the Bhagavatam it says, O Maharaj Parikshit, the entire universe with its greatly exalted demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma and Lord Indra is under the control of the personality of Godhead. Yet the Supreme Lord has one transcendental attribute. He has come under the control of his devotee. So here, again, we're speaking of the principle that yogis and others are trying to capture the personality of Godhead, but they cannot even envision this pastime of how Mother Yashoda, through her deep love, has able to bhakti badam, has bound the personality of Godhead. So this specific pastime, it takes place in Gokul, or as Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, on Diwali day, when Krishna was 4 years old. This is when this pastime takes place in Gokul. And at the same time, when Krishna was 7, on the same day, or the next day, he lifts Govardhan Hill. So this pastime takes place within this period of Kartik that we all are observing here. And there's a great benediction that's given that anyone who worships Krishna in this month and recites the Damodarastakam and offers one lamp, he will obtain the favor of Krishna very easily in this month than other months. So Prabhupada, in speaking of this, he speaks about the fact that sometimes stores have sales. Prabhupada says, stores have sales. When something very valuable, you can purchase at a reduced price. So he says this month of Kartik or month of Damodar is like that sale. That you can obtain something, Krishna Bhakti, very high price. But you can obtain it very easily in this month. You can obtain and Prabhupada then goes on to say, what is the purpose of a sale? Anyone? Get rid of stock? Well, Prabhupada says it's to attract new customers. It's to attract new customers. So, specifically, this month of Damodar will attract new individuals. When they hear, oh, you'll get something much cheaper than you normally would. Normally you have to follow so many rules and regulations and so many things. So specifically in the holy places, those of a very business mentality, the Maravaris and others, they think this is a good deal. And that's why Vrindavan and all of these places are so full in Kartik if you go. Because they think, well, if I go and offer one lamp or I do something, I'm greatly favored in this month than any other month. So they leave aside their businesses and other things. And many of them don't do any business this month. They just do devotion. They'll go to a holy place and just perform some devotion. Because they've figured it out. That you get a lot more return this month than any month. Of course, Prabhupada goes on to say, for devotees, this is not our endeavor. Every day is Kartik. Every day we should be endeavoring. We shouldn't have the fruitive mentality. But you know what it is? If you see a shop and it says sale, and the sale is all year round, you're not going to go in there. Why? Because you think, I'm sure there's no bargains here. But if the sale is only once in the year, you know, I'm going to go at that time. Because there must be something genuine. So even as Vaishnavas and devotees, although all year we are trying very hard in our sadhana, but when we think there's a little month when I have to try a little harder, not that we want more returns. So we think, I can do that 1 month. That's not too bad. But if you're asking me all year, it's not possible. But 1 month I can attempt. So Krishna, knowing our mentality, has taken advantage that in the month of Kartik, you can endeavor a little extra. And you know, in Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatana Goswami goes on to say all the things you should be doing in Kartik. And specifically he speaks about the fact that daily you should rise early, have a bath, because having a bath in Kartik, very cold in Vrindavan, so it's austere. And every day you should worship Krishna and Yashoda Damodar and offer one lamp, one diva. And of course, if you come here, all of that is going on automatically every day, not just in Kartik. So you can do all of that here. So that becomes, so people tend to think, okay, let me try and do that this month. So some personal vow I can take up. And in Prabhupada, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he speaks about these 64 items of bhakti, and he mentions that one of those items is called Urjavrat. Urjavrat, which refers to the month of Kartik. That you perform this vrat in the month of Kartik, Prabhupada says, and he says this is one of the 64 items of bhakti. So this month of Kartik is one of the 64 items whereby you observe some vrat. And there are many things you can do. As Prabhupada said, in this month, whatever you're doing, it multiplies 1,000 times. And if you're in Vrindavan, it multiplies 10,000 times. And then Prabhupada said, all my temples, they are Vrindavan. So there's no need to catch a plane in case you're thinking of catching one this morning. He said, all my temples, they are Vrindavan. So this is just, literally, it means that, increase your devotion. We shouldn't become mercantile. That, okay, I'm going to get a lot more. But, because we have that mixed principle within us, karma mishra bhakti, we're not always Sudha bhakti. We're mixed in our devotion. So these things attract us. But whatever it is that attracts us, if we can come and serve Krishna, that's good. So specifically, Urjavrat is performed, and Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Devotion that this period, which is from full moon to full moon, or Ekadashi to Ekadashi, you perform what's known as Niyama Sevana, some seva that you'll do, something that you'll do. And when Prabhupada was asked by Gurudas, how shall I perform Kartik? Because he'd read all of these things, and Prabhupada said, don't sleep and don't eat. So he said, I cannot do that. He said, yes, so just chant Hare Krishna all the time, 24 hours. That you can do, he said. So all these other things, and devotees do that. It's their personal vow. It's not something that everyone has to do. Some people will not shave, not eat sweets. In Vrindavan, if you go, everyone has got a different thing that they'll be doing. All for pleasing Krishna, of course. So some austerities, or they'll do Dandavat Parikram of Govardhan, different things in this month. All good, because you push yourself this month. If you had to do it in January, you wouldn't. But you think it's Kartik, let me do it. So, in the Puranas, the story is given that if you simply offer one lamp in this month, all your sins from so many previous lives, they will disappear. And the story is there of the rat. During the month of Kartik, the rat who was eating the ghee wick in the temple. And you know how it is, the ghee wicks are put out in Kartik. Very dangerous time in Vrindavan temple, everyone's got these lamps. It's packed, it's full, so so the ghee wick will go out and then it will come on again. So this rat was eating the ghee, but then it came on again and it caught fire, and obviously the rat was in great pain, but it started jumping in front of the deity with the lamp. So Krishna took it that he was offering him a lamp in the month of Kartik. So this rat, when it passed away, immediately he obtained the four-armed Vishnu form and he went back to Vaikuntha. So what to speak of us who offers a lamp, who will offer a lamp in devotion in this month to increase our devotion. What merits there must be. So the Puranas always give all of these stories to give us some incentive how to increase our devotion. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in speaking of this pastime in his Chaitanya Shikshamrita, he specifically concentrates on the latter part of this verse, where the two sons of Kuvera, Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, and he says that this, because he's speaking about the different demons, of how these different demons represent different qualities that we all have. So he says that these two sons of Kuvera, they represent pride and arrogance, which comes from being born in a wealthy family. Interesting, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaking on that. He said pride and arrogance that is there because you were born in a wealthy family. Because they were the sons of the wealthiest person. You know, isn't it? There are many wealthy people. I was just recently in Bombay, and somebody showed me the house of Mukesh Ambani. It's a huge house, richest building in the world. $1 billion it cost. And there are, I think, 4 stories just for his car park, and 2 stories which are gardens, and like that. And 2,000 servants. And his family members, including him, are 4. And there you are. So, there are many rich people, but the richest person is Kuvera. He's the treasurer. He's got all the money of the universe, all the demigods' wealth. So his 2 sons, Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, because they were born into this wealth, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said they had pride and arrogance. So when often you are born in a wealthy situation, you have pride and arrogance. Why? Because when Narada Muni came in front of them, they ignored him. He came in front, they ignored him totally. Whereas anyone else would have thought, oh, I'm naked, I shouldn't be, I should put some clothes on. They carried on. So pride and arrogance which comes from being born in a wealthy family. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he speaks on this principle. And finally, concluding on 2 points, this is the period which is known as Bhishma Panchak. And it's the last 5 days of Kartik, where different devotees may take different vows, but these are all individual things. They're not recommended. Prabhupada didn't recommend them either. And often, majority of devotees who take up these vows, what they do is they don't take any grains for 5 days. That's what they'll do. So today's still, we're all fasting till half day anyway. So they don't take any grains for the 5 days. So it's good if you're doing it to increase your devotion to Krishna. If you're doing it to lose weight, maybe it's not such a good thing. Maybe it's good for your health, but it's not increasing your devotion. So Bhishma Panchaka has this, and others who will eat Panchagavya, they won't even take fruits, but they'll take the 5 products of the cow on different days. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, but it's what it says. But specifically what it says is that Bhishma Panchaka is the period where Bhishma Dev was meditating on Krishna, the 5 days before he passed away. But specifically, it said that anyone who observes these 5 days gets the merits of observing the 4 months of Chaturmasya. Again, these are all Padma Purana, all incentives for people to engage in devotion, because they don't normally do that. So they get a little incentive, let me try and do something. For us as Vaishnavas, every day is Bhishma Panchaka. Every day should be on that principle. So, but anyway, here's an incentive for the next 5 days to come, at least offer these 8 prayers, offer 1 diva, and absorb ourselves in chanting more rounds. This is all good things we can do. Perhaps it's a good time also that maybe keep our mind very steady. Generally our mind is not always steady, at least mine isn't. So keep it focused. Don't be judgmental, don't be critical. Perhaps we should be more forgiving. So these are good things to do, because they will actually progress your spiritual life. So these are good things to do for 5 days, because 5 days you can do it. You can control your mind. It's possible. When you see that person you don't like, or whatever it is, you'll control your mind. Being judgmental, whatever it is, it's possible. Longer, maybe it's not possible. So Bhishma Panchak, this is there. And finally, of course, today is the disappearance day of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, the spiritual master of Om Vishnupad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. The only disciple. He was the only disciple that Gaur Kishore Das Babaji didn't initiate. He was a grihastha who became a mendicant, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, of course, took initiation from him. And today we observe the disappearance day of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, and it's a half-day fast, which is there. And I thought I'd just conclude by speaking a little bit about him. That when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj had heard that Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj has passed away, so he went to the Kuliya Dharamshala where he had passed away. And when he arrived there were different persons from different temples of Navadvip. And there was a fierce argument going on as to where the spiritual body of Babaji Maharaj should be placed in Samadhi. And why was it a fierce debate? Because in the future, wherever the Samadhi was, that's where a lot of pilgrims would come. And that meant that financially you would be better off than others. And hence that's why everyone claimed that it should be on our compound. Babaji Maharaj loved that the best, and he would have liked to have been there. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, when he appeared on the scene, it got to such a brawl that in the end the inspector of police had to come. And the diaries speak about even the name of the inspector, because it was, not that far along. It says Sri Gupta was his name. The inspector of police. He arrived to try and resolve this matter. So there are so many matters often that need resolving. So generally in the Gaudiya mission, the history was in the end the police had to come, or the legal or the barristers had to come to solve where certain things stand. So they claimed, all the other temples, that Bhaktisiddhanta, because he was Bimal Prasad at that time, he wasn't a sannyasi, so he said he is not a sannyasi, and hence he cannot touch the body of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Only a sannyasi can touch his body and place it in samadhi. So that was the argument being used by everyone, that this is what we think. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj replied, he said, I am the only disciple of the Paramahamsa Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Even if I haven't accepted sannyas, I have been a very strict celibate brahmachari all my life. And by the mercy of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, I have never embarked on Markata Vairagya, monkey renunciation, and being addicted to sinful activities. I can say this with all my pride. And then the debate carried on, and then he put a challenge out to everyone. And this was his challenge, that if you want to take the spiritual body of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he said, if there are any persons present before me who are actually pure of nature and are really renounced from household life, then that person can build the samadhi of Babaji Maharaj. And I have no objection. But whoever it is should not have had any illicit connections within the last 1 year. And then he said, or the last 6 months. Nobody put up their hands. And he said, in the last month. And then finally he said, within the last 3 days. When he finally made this statement, he said, because if you have, and if you touch the spiritual body of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, you will be completely devastated. If you've had illicit connections in the last 3 days, month, 6 months or 1 year. So the police inspector was astonished, Guptaji. And one by one, the so-called Babajis, they all turned their backs to Bhaktisiddhanta. And seeing all this, that they all walked away, and the only person left in the room was Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. And the magistrate was very astonished, because these were all renunciates and Babaji Maharajas. After that had finished and Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj had claimed the spiritual body, several people came to see Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj and said that when he passed away, he spoke to us. And Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj requested that his body be bound with ropes and then it be dragged through the streets of Navadvip. And in this way, the body will be bathed in the dust of Navadvip Dham. Therefore, we want to do that. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that, he said, I fully understand the mind of my spiritual master, and you do not. He said, in humility, he's asking all of you that you should take the dust from Navadvip Dham. Not that his body needs to be dragged. So he refused the last wish that was made in that manner. And he said, I am the only disciple and I have the right. So of course then a samadhi, Bhaktisiddhanta personally made the samadhi at that place. And it was in Kulia originally. in Navadvip. But in due course of time, the area of Kulia became very degraded, specifically where the Samadhi was. And Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to move that Samadhi. He said, this is very degraded now, we should move it. But in due course of time, naturally, the tide of the Ganga changed. And it came too close to the Samadhi of Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. And hence, Bhaktisiddhanta, he ordered the Samadhi be moved from that area. And he was happy because he said the area of Kulia wasn't any good anyway, he said. Many debauchee persons are living there. And it was moved to where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj was, in the Chaitanya Math, which is just on the Bhaktisiddhanta road. So if you go to the Chaitanya Math, you'll find the Samadhi of Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and of course of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as well. Both are there in the Chaitanya Math. So on this day, we can remember Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj and his valiant efforts to give Krishna consciousness. And of course in that line, Prabhupada fulfilled all the wishes of all the acharyas by taking Krishna consciousness, not just to the holy places or 108 temples as Bhaktisiddhanta did, but Jare Dako Tare Kaho Krishna Upadesh Amara Agyai Guru Hani Tare Desh, to every town and village. And as we say, Prabhupada didn't stop there. He will go to every town and village in the universe in due course of time. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. It is already 9:30, we've taken up too much time. So tomorrow we'll continue with the third verse. Hare Krishna.